All right, we're joined today at Nova Lab Studios by Anna Kara. Anna, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So you are a mortgage lender.
Yes,
You have your own business, Anna Kara Loans.
Yes, I do.
So how long have you been doing what you've been doing?
About 18 years at this point.
18 years?
Yes.
Okay, so how'd you get started in this? Why are you still in it after 18 years? What's kept you in it?
I got started in it because I had to leave law school to work because my mom at that time, due to the 9/11 that happened, she lost her business and I needed to help out to support. So I got out of law school and my first job was at a real estate and a mortgage company. And I was there as a receptionist, like an office manager type of a deal. And then with 6 months into it, I started doing cold calls and the leads that they weren't able to turn it into transactions, I took them and I tried to turn it in myself. And sure enough, I did. And then the rest is history, I guess. That's where we are.
Did you, when you were trying to get a job, were you like looking for something in real estate?
No,
or was
I
like,
was
whatever
just trying to
find?
work whatever I could find at that time because I needed to work to help out my family.
So you just took that, that was whatever worked at the time, you took it, and then
Yes.
you just, since then, you've just enjoyed it and you've stayed in it.
Definitely. It was $800 a month. And my rent at the time was $915. So I had to figure out a way how to make it more. So obviously they would see the commission checks and, at the office, everybody was the real estate agents, the loan officers, and so on. And I said, I have to try it. And I did try it, and my first check was like $3,000 something. It was a refinance, which one of my mom's friends actually housed that we did. And I was like, this is it. And I just enjoyed the fact that you have control over your own income. And obviously you work like a dog, like there's no tomorrow. But at the end of the day, you're your own boss. So within a year or two after that, the company was moving to Moreno Valley and they asked me to move with them. Obviously, I couldn't go. And I just risked it and I just went on my own.
So how long has that been now? You've been doing your own thing?
That will be probably about over 16 years.
That's been yours?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you did it for like 2 years?
Exactly.
And after only 2 years, you're like,
yeah,
okay,
I was 20 when I went on my own.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 20.
So when you started, obviously it was just you, but within what period of time did you bring anyone else on, if you did?
Within I'll say about 6 months, I had a processing team already set up. My thing has always been because my business throughout the years has always been referral basis. There's just past couple of 3-4 years, I started doing more marketing, like social media type of a deal. But again, I did not do it for the business purposes. I just did it for the name awareness because everybody's on social media nowadays. And it was always been a word of mouth. And I always had to build my team. My backbone was strong enough. And as far as receiving deals, getting deals, I didn't have to have other loan officers in order for me to produce. It was just basically I was the producing main one. And then I had a processing team that would be processing my loans. For me personally, that worked out very well throughout the years. So,
I mean, what's interesting to me is that, so again, the whole thing where you do it for 2 years and then you have obviously the confidence and the ability, like the knowledge of what you're doing to go and start on your own. Was there, like while you were working the prior job, like when you were employed under someone else, was there someone there that you learned a lot from, or even from that, like a lot of it you kind of picked up on your own?
A lot of it I kind of picked up on my own, but yet at the same time, my boss, Arman Karayan, I always say one of the best trainings that I ever got. He used to be an employee manager at the Bali Total Fitness, and their knowledge of sales and the training that they had was priceless to me. And Patrick but David. He was also a manager at the Bali Total Fitness, and that's when he got his first training as well. And at the time of training, the meetings with the loan officers and realtors that he would have, I asked him if I could join, and he allowed me to join, and it was absolutely mind-boggling to me. And I was taking everything in like a sponge, you know what I mean? Like it was information, new information coming in, and I used to work from 6 a.m. until 11 o'clock at night. We used to do my office job during the day, work hours, and then it would be calling, and then there are times when I would even do real estate at evenings. And when we used to have Thomas Guide Maps, the actual one, it wasn't just
Yeah.
the Google Maps. So yeah, so I did both for a while, and then I just stuck to the mortgage because it's much more exciting for me. Maybe real estate once I retire, but the mortgage world is much more exciting to me than the real estate part of it.
Okay, so let's get into the actual meat of what you do. So, what is a mortgage? I think, like I was telling you before we started, I think people look at a mortgage like this is what I have to pay to live where I am. But what else makes it up? How does it work?
Well, it all depends, I guess. For me, having getting someone a mortgage, getting approved someone with a mortgage is, it's always you have to understand what fits that client the best, and it's structured around their needs, obviously, whatever they're purchasing, their affordability, if they could afford that or not. It's not just about approving them. At the end of the day, if you cannot make the payments, that becomes a burden on them. But it's you're paying basically for your property that you own, and you obviously want to pay it off eventually, but it all depends. If you're a business owner, sometimes you don't want to pay it off because it's a tax write-off for you, and so on. So there's a lot of nuances that come in play. It all depends. It's with everybody, with every single person is different. So there are different types of programs out there, obviously different, payment options, and, low down payments, high down payments, jumbo products, and so on. I mean, I could go on and on. But again, it's very specific. It's not one fit all.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not one size. So, that's again the huge misunderstanding that a lot of people have, that it's, if he got it, I could get it too. If the other person got it, that means I could get it too, but that's not how it works.
What's the most common mortgage that seems to be like? Do you do 30 years typically? Is it 30 years fixed that you get that most people are trying to get? Is it 15?
Most people will be 30-year fixed conventionals or conventional
Mhm.
high balances, depending on the structure of the loan. But those are the most typical ones, especially nowadays because the rates are so low. And it's extremely important to understand one other thing when it comes down to mortgages or owning a real estate in general, that you should look at it as an investment, regardless if you're living in it or not. It's equity that is growing. You have to keep yourself. You have to give yourself the ability to liquidate anytime you want to. If you need to refinance, to take cash out, if there's another investment you're doing. So you have to keep yourself open. I always tell this to my clients that when they come in, like in a household, there's one person that they're going to get it under their name. I'm like, I don't care what you guys do, whose credit you use for what, but if whoever's name has the mortgage on, please make sure that you keep it nice and clean, and they're showing income, taxes are filed properly, because you want to keep yourself open to anything that you might have to refinance or sell or purchase a new house or whatever the situation is. So I always suggest that for my clients, and anybody that work with me knows throughout the years, and 95% of my clientele are returning clienteles that been with me for over 15 years, and I literally structured their whole portfolio. Every year we go over their taxes, we look at everything, any plans they have for investment, and so on. So I'm not just your regular mortgage loan officer that just says, hey, this is what we can do, this is your loan, see you later.
Yeah.
So
So with when you're doing your loans, is there like, do you ever have it where someone's trying to get one and it's just like you look at it like this is gonna be hard for you, like to make this work? Like it's like, do you ever have a feeling of like telling someone, I don't know if this is right? Like when you look at what they're, because I think correct me if I'm wrong. Like I'm sure sometimes you see where it's like this is barely, like you're looking at the income and all that. Like they're trying to add up like 4 people's incomes to make sure they have enough to qualify for whatever the monthly is. Do you see that? Is that something you see often, or is it not too often? But when you see, like, what goes through your mind?
What I see often is taxes that are not prepared well. That shows that I understand the accountants as well in a way, because the client goes in there and says, make sure I don't pay a lot of taxes. But as a professional, and I think this will go with a lot of CPAs as well, it's our job to educate them. Okay, I have 3 kids, and if my kid comes says I just want to eat candy 24/7, that doesn't mean I have to give him candy 24/7. I have to tell him no, you could have one candy a day or maybe every other day, but it's my job to educate the kid. And same thing goes with the clients. It's as a professional, it's our job to educate them. So one of the things that I see a lot is, again, taxes that are not filed correctly, because if they were filed correctly, that person would qualify. It hits their income. They pay more taxes than they were supposed to. There's a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding that happens, I think, in between accountants and the clients itself. And I think it just comes down to not being, properly educated on that and understanding how it works. And I personally think that's the main thing that I always see when it comes down to clients. And then once I explain to them, I explain the process to them and everything else, they're like, oh, wow, that makes sense. Now we understand, and so on. So I think it's just a perspective that you need to shift in people for them to understand differently. And a lot of people have the perspective that, you have to pay $30,000-$40,000 in taxes in order for you to qualify for a loan. But that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So
Does it like when that's happening, and then you look at it, like the taxes weren't done correctly, and usually, like you said, not usually, but like one of the reasons that happens, like you said, is so that they try to not pay as much, so somehow they show less or whatever. Is there anything that can be done at that point?
depending on depending on the situation, how urgent it is, and so on. If it's extremely urgent, I would go ahead and do stated transaction for them,
Which is
no income verification. But in reality, okay, that is still they still have the right to verify your income. That doesn't give you the right to forge their income on the actual loan application. This is something that a lot of people don't know. When you sign loan docs, you state that you have actually stated their true income, and they have a right to obtain a 4506 from IRS and check down the line as well if it was the actual reality or not. So a lot of people have a perception about that, which is not true. The other thing is, if it's something urgent, then we can go with the stated income, obviously. If it's not, then let's say if the client walks into my office today, 2020 is right around the corner. At the end of January of 2021, we could file 2020 taxes. So that gives us the ability, especially with self-employed borrowers, and majority in our community are self-employed, 1099. You know what I mean? That's what they show on their taxes. So that gives us the ability to structure if there's anything we need to adjust. That gives us 2021 in order for us to do so. And again, just strictly comes down to filing it properly on their, Schedule Cs, and understanding how it works and everything else.
So you can still go about getting it with not having your income like you can go without having your income verified, but they have the right to verify.
Yes.
But so you can still do that.
You can still do that, but it's right now you're looking at 25 to 30% down. You get hit. Those are called portfolio products. Meaning
Okay.
if it's not a Fannie and Freddie product, those are portfolio products, and those loans don't get sold to Fannie and Freddie, so it's a higher risk loans, so to speak. So that's why your interest rate is higher,
Okay.
your fees are higher, and everything else. And I always tell my clients, what's the point of you paying a fee? I mean, at the end of the day, you're gonna be paying me for the fee. Obviously, it's beneficial for me, but in the long term, it doesn't do anything for you, because you're just gonna pay a fee, get the house, and then what? You're just stuck with a high interest rate loan, with a bad loan, and you can't do anything down the line. After a year, if you want to refinance, there's a lot of people nowadays who try to take advantage of the lower rates, and they're not able to, because they purchased the property a year ago, 2 years ago, with stated deal, and now they don't have any income to show. They don't have anything to show, so they're stuck. with a high rate. And again, mortgages are a long-term investment. They're not a short-term investment unless you're an investor, you want to flip and everything else. That's a completely different conversation. But in generally speaking, it's a long-term investment. And whoever is doing your loan needs to understand this and give you the proper direction and the proper knowledge and explain to you how it works. So that way you understand that, you're paying 2 points. It's going to take you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years sometimes just to break it even on your loan. And that's when you're only going to be starting paying off the from your principal. So again, I think it's just has to do strictly with who you're dealing with. And there's always an option. There's always a way. I always say this. It's just a matter of structuring it, matter of reviewing everything. So
what you just described with how you're saying the client pretty much has to be educated by whoever's doing the loan. And I'm sure you know plenty of other people that do what you do. Are the majority in the party that do legitimately educate, like they do have the best interest in mind, or is there a blend between that type of person and the ones that are malicious and are like, I don't care, just make sure I get my money? What's in the circle that you know? How is it?
It's so funny. I've been in the industry for so long, and you'll be surprised how many 95% of the loan officers in the industry, I don't know them because I never function with the mentality of, oh, let me see what the other person is doing for me to do this or that. I always say this, I'm my own worst enemy, I'm my own competition, I'm my own everything. So I just do me pretty much. But in general, knowing the way the industry is built, the way that they function, the way they structure everything is more of a numbers game. How many loans you closed a month? You know what I mean? What's that dollar amount that you've closed, number of units and meaning of transactions? And for me, as it has never been the case, because that's not how I function. If somebody closed 30 million a month, good for them. I'm very happy. My 15, 20 is perfectly fine for me. If the other person closes 3 million, whatever works for them. You know what I mean? Like I never approach it that way. So I don't look at anybody as a competition because nobody's me and I'm the other person. I'm not the other person. So whatever works. But in generally, like whatever the process training is and everything else is just get that client and close the transaction. But I personally don't work that way. If I know it's not beneficial, even though I could make it happen just for my commission purposes, I won't do the loan if it's not beneficial for the client.
Yeah, I mean, what you just explained makes sense to me, but I was thinking of it more like in terms of like not networking, but like kind of bouncing off ideas or how things work for you. But for you, I guess you're just like comfortable enough to like I already know how to do it, or it's just
it's my experience, and I deal with throughout the years also. Like every loan officer, anybody starts new, anybody that everybody says go after realtors, go after realtors, go after realtors. Never once I went after a realtor.
It was still word of mouth, pretty much. Right?
Word of mouth, and my clients are my everything, and I appreciate their business because don't get me wrong, I have friends who are realtors, I work with them and everything else, but the whole mentality of the idea that you're supposed to go after realtors, to me it's like if they want to work with me, more than welcome to do so. But I'm not going to beg anybody to be in business with me. That's never going to happen, period. That's just who I am. I guess that's a personality thing more than anything. So you come to me because of my loyalty to you. You come to me because of my knowledge. You come to me because of the service that I provide. So if you come to me for any other reason than that, not going to happen.
So how many people are on your team?
Right now we have, how many of us? There's 5 of us all together. Yeah. And then we have a back team who does post closings and so on, which is a separate office in Pasadena. There's a few people over there as well. So
how'd you like go about finding your team?
It's extremely difficult.
I can imagine, especially if kind of how you're describing yourself, how you work at obviously sets the bar higher for someone to come in because you're evaluating them like that.
Yes, and I tried to lower my standards a little, but that didn't work out very well for me. So, but it's extremely difficult. But I'm fortunate enough to have amazing people in my team, and clients who turn into best friends, who turn into, partners and so on. So, but I guess it's a process we all go through. I give fair chance to everybody, and I don't doubt anybody. I trust everybody to the limit, but I give him the chance to prove me if I should continue trusting them and if it's worth the time and the effort. So, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If it works out, great. We're still continuing, but I'm not going to lower my standards anymore. That's not going to happen.
What's currently the hardest part of having your own business, specifically with this?
Specifically with mortgage, the hardest part will be just trying to keep everybody happy, and meaning of my clients. Like, everybody wants to talk to me. Everybody wants to hear from me. And it's extremely difficult because it's like, literally, I could be on phones 24/7. I'm not joking. I could literally be on the phone for 24/7.
Well, you were saying you still had to go do something after
Yes,
this.
I do. Yeah, I have a doc signing after this. I have a doc signing to go to. But I could be on phones 24/7. And if I'm on a phone 24/7, that means there are certain things that are not getting done internally, which would, again, goes back to the client's files. So there are times when I just eliminate myself from the world. Basically, I shut down and I concentrate on work. But then everybody's like, you're not calling me back. You're not doing this. I'm like, I've came to how should I put this? I've came to realization and to a place where I tell myself, Anna, it's okay. The world is not gonna fall apart. If you don't talk to a person today, you'll talk to them tomorrow. Nothing is going to change. But in the beginning, it was extremely difficult for me because it was like paranoia for me. Like, okay, I have to call back this person. Until 11, 12 o'clock at night, I was on the phones and I'm like, okay, I can't do this. My sanity is much more important to me. So I backed down a little, and adjustments and everything else. And unfortunately, you can't keep everybody happy. So
would you say now, at this point of your career, have you finally found the balance that works best for you, or are you still trying to perfect that balance? I'm
still trying to perfect it because our industry is constantly changing, constantly growing. There's a lot of things, like COVID happened, the whole industry shifted, everything changed. So you have to constantly be able to adjust and move forward with it. And I always tell people, like, this is an amazing industry to be in. And financially, it's great. But again, you have to put the effort into it. You have to put the work into it. And I always give an example that, the whole world shut down with the COVID situation. But the mortgage, I never stopped a day. Literally, as of today, like, I'm working 7 days a week. No joke. So it's like, and I always tell people, I'm like, you should really reconsider where you are. And if you're thinking about, career change or whatever you're thinking about, definitely mortgage is one of the places to be in, because it doesn't matter who you are. Everybody needs a mortgage, one point or not. So I have a list from, doctors, professors, engineers to, down the line. So it's like, I deal with everybody. So, but it's this constant shift. You just constantly have to adjust.
So you're still, like you said, you're working 7 days a week now, even though the pandemic is still ongoing. Mm-hmm. But when it first started, or at any point, or even still now, what's been the effect on how you do things? So you're still busy then, yes, obviously, but how has it impacted what you guys do?
In the beginning, it was tough because a lot of programs just went out the door. A lot of them, like the stated programs and so on, mm-hmm, it just went out the door immediately. That was the first thing, which was actually a great reaction from the from Fannie and Freddie and the efforts to stop the crash happening, because it was similar when 2008 happened. So they took action in order for us not to get in that position with all the stated deals. They shut down all the cash out refinances. People couldn't take cash out on their properties. So they're not taking out, and then it would just go for foreclosures. And again, it would create the crash of the market. I personally thought it was a genius way to take care of that situation.
Who made that decision, by the way? Who ultimately decides that?
That's government.
Okay.
That's government decides on that. The it was just, we just needed to adjust. A lot of clients got upset. People think that it's me. You know what I mean? That they think it's me. I'm like, it has nothing to do with me. Whatever the changes are, we have to follow. There's nothing we can do about it. So, and then delays started happening on transactions, and then overlays started to kick in with investors because of the COVID. They have to make sure that you're actually getting the money that you're working. Your income hasn't changed. And then with self-employed borrowers is extremely tough, because how are they going to verify your income now? Just tax returns, but those tax returns were previous year and now year to date. How are you going to adjust to this? How are you going to verify? And, when you're not involved in a transaction, if I explain this to you, you understand. But when you're a buyer, you're purchasing a property and you're involved in a transaction, to you, everything is nonsense. So even if I tell you, like, we need to show this, you're like, what is it to them? Why are they asking for it? I'm like, you have to understand this. People don't know who you are. We know, but those people don't know who you are. You're just a number to them on paper. So you have to make sure that you show your income. They have to see that you're still working, earning the money that you are. So, but slowly, as of like November, end of October, beginning of November, all those overlays for COVID, they slowly started coming off. Where if you had investment properties, not only they would ask 6 months reserves for each property. With COVID, it was additional, like up to a year, pretty much.
Okay.
Jumbo products went out the door. Any loan amounts above 765 just went out the door. So, it was just a lot of adjustment, a lot of changes. And then slowly, this past couple of weeks, they started slowly, returning some stuff, and just obviously with changes, with guideline changes, but they're slowly coming back. Again, even though they're coming back, I'm not the one who's going to jump on it right away. I just let it be a little, figuring out what's going on. I just kind of like to learn from other people and what they go through in order for me to, offer certain things to my clients.
So you were saying, under normal circumstance, if you're getting an additional investment property, the expectations, you have 6 months worth of reserves
for each additional property. Yeah.
Under normal circumstances.
Under normal circumstances.
But you're saying now what they did was pretty much added another 6 months?
Another 3 to 6 months, depending on the investor, because
Got
every
it.
investor
Okay.
had their own overlays. So they started switching whatever they wanted, pretty much. So, but in general, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which is DUNLP, would ask for 6 months PITI.
Okay, yeah, because I was actually talking to a buddy of mine the other day about it, and he had just got a property, an investment property, and he was mentioning, he's like, they're like wanting more reserves. And I understand. I'm like, they didn't ask me when I bought a house, but I wasn't an investor. So I was wondering, I'm like, that's weird. I wonder why. So it's funny you mention it, because I'm like, oh, well, now that makes sense.
Yeah. See, that's where your friend should have known why they're asking for those reserves. Okay. See, that's where in our community, in the mortgage world, and I think also not only in the mortgage world, in real estate world, I think a lot of, as a professional, we don't do our job good enough to explain to the borrowers.
So you're saying that should have already been, like, you shouldn't have been left wondering why. Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, I agree.
Exactly. That should have been addressed as to what, as to why they're asking for more reserves.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest, because I've had a couple of friends during this pandemic, actually, but I don't think it's unique to the timing of it, but that have gone through the whole refinance or refinancing or buying something. And it's always a horror story. When I bought my house, it was okay. Honestly, I was fortunate. My process was fine. But like with them, I'm like, from the day they started, I started the process to the day it ended, it took like 2-3 months, not because of escrow was kind of thing. Escrow became kind of long because someone lost this paperwork. This one, now they need more stubs because they took so long or whatever. Like something kept happening, and it just, the theme seemed like there's someone's dropping the ball somewhere, or communication doesn't happen, because then they'll be telling me, like, I'm trying to get a hold of them to know what's going on. I can't get a hold of them. So that's like on the consumer side. So I wonder, you as now on the other side of it, when you hear what I just described, does that all sound like, does that sound more like responsibility on the lender, or is there something there's something that could be done where both parties don't have that communication issue and just the whole feeling of being in flux and not knowing what's going on? Why is it taking so long? Because that's what it seems to be the thing I always hear when it comes to like the process of buying a home.
Buying a home. So here's the thing. That's something I hear often in general. And I think it's the expectations that are set originally. I always say
By the buyer.
not just by the buyer, by the loan officer, by the realtor, by everybody involved in the process. Also, you guys have to understand one thing. When I mean you, I mean just like in general. Mortgage is not, once you accept the offer, it's not just the loan officer working on your transaction. There's escrow involved. There's the escrow officer's assistants involved. There's the realtor has an assistant. The realtor is involved. There's an appraiser who is also involved. There's an underwriter. There's an assistant to loan officer. You know what I mean? And then you have the buyer. Then you have the seller. Then you have the property inspector that is involved in there as well. And the list goes on. So on every single transaction, that could be just there could be up to 10 people involved in one transaction. So if somebody drops the ball somewhere at one point, it affects the whole group. Okay. So if the accountant delays something, that delays on my end. If the other realtor delays something, that delays on me, doing my job. And also the sad part is a lot of people don't understand this either. You open up a 30-day escrow. In reality, for the loan officer, it's like a 20-some-plus day escrow because we don't work on weekends. Banks are not, they're closed on weekends. That's another thing I think the real estate world should adjust. To me, it's like, it's insane. Like, how can you go into escrow with the loan approval saying that you're obtaining a loan? It's not a cash transaction. 30-day escrow, when knowing in reality is we have 20-some-plus days to close the transaction. And the expectation, I think, needs to be set properly. Like, a realtor with this COVID thing happening, you should be I was in shock to see how many realtors were not even aware of a COVID disclosure. That it was not just for the showing purposes, but there's a COVID disclosure that says for whatever reason, any delays caused by COVID, buyer or seller has the right to extend the escrow for additional 30 days without any damages.
And you were finding that realtors were not.
No, they were not even aware of it.
Oh, they didn't even know.
They didn't even know. I literally did a whole live on it because I was able to save an escrow transaction literally from cancellation because of that. And that's not my job. That's not my job to do so. But if I know, I cannot just let the client lose on the property just because the realtor is not competent enough to understand how it works. Okay, so I think it's just the expectation needs to be set properly. There are transactions which close very fast. I literally close the transactions in like 4 days CTC, meaning clear to close from submission to CTC, 4 days clear to close. My record is 1 day, and I want to hit 0. Meaning from submission, submit the file, you get clear to close. Yeah, you just get clear to close. So I'm trying to get there, which I'm pretty sure I will one day. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, so what it is 95% of my clients whom I've worked before, whom I've structured, I know their income, I know everything that they have, I know their capabilities and what they need, they could do or what they cannot do. The process from submission to CTC, like the whole process itself, it's extremely smooth, extremely clean. But anybody new comes in that has issues, we need to amend taxes, we need to adjust this because this was filed wrong, that was filed wrong. Obviously, it's a process that it takes. So again, going back to it, expectations need to be set properly from the beginning. When
you were describing the process where you were saying there could be up to 10 people involved doing some kind of different responsibility during the process of buying a home. And then you mentioned when I described the frustrations that the people I know were describing, and you said, I've heard that often. Is that something you also deal with often personally yourself? Not necessarily a fault of your own, but so one of those 10 people or one of those 8, whatever, where someone ends up messing it up. Does that happen?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. It's always the case. It's always the case.
So majority of the time that,
yes.
or 100% of the time it happens. It's never 1 to 10. You did it. Everyone did it right. We're good.
Well, usually the 1 to 10 everybody did good is usually during the refinance transactions because the escrow company I have a relationship I work with for many years. They're amazing. They know how I function, how I operate, and it's between me and the escrow company. You know what I mean? And the client, obviously. But it's usually the purchase transactions that causes a lot of issues And if the real estate agent is not knowledgeable enough, that causes a lot of issues, because 90% of the time I turn into a realtor as well during the transaction. So it just drives me insane. And at the end of the day, obviously everybody loves to point fingers. So they have to point fingers at somebody. So it is what it is, kind of a deal. I know at my heart, I always do my best at the given moment, and I always look out for my client's best interests. So nobody can come to me and say, you did me wrong. You know what I mean? So I'm completely fine with that.
Is there anything that you've ever thought of that could improve that process? Or is it like, 'cause what you're describing is, certain people, the expectation has to be set. They need to be more clear on communication. Do you think that alone would perfect this process, or is there something else? I don't know what, but like, is there something else that would make this a more efficient process?
I came up with a group of a part of my team, a group of people. We came up with a loan app. That it's Anna Kara app. It's actually at the iTunes store and also Android. This was like over 4 or 5 years ago
That you had came up with.
Yes. And it just is seamless process. It tells you exactly, it's transparent, everybody involved, the realtor, everybody connected
All those
to
people
it.
we described.
Yes. So it's a very seamless process. It tells you notifications, where your file is, what's the next step, like the expectations. It tells you exactly. It's like a roadmap for you. But I do have a challenge with that, because it's the learning curve, people learning to get used to it. Now they're more used to it. But 5 years ago, it was completely like, dinosaurs to them. They're like, what is this? So it was the learning curve. And then also on top of that, I think I baby my clients too much throughout the years. So they're used to kind of, always like talking to me. And I hear this a lot. They're like, oh, once we talk to you, we feel comfortable, everything is fine. But then in reality it's like, there's only one of me, and there's only like, 12 hours a day that I literally work, 12, 15 hours a day. So there's only so much I can do and push, and you know what I mean? Like divide my time into all of that. So I think it's the expectations extremely important. And also, I don't think that problem is ever going to go away for the reasoning that people are emotional, and we tend to forget what we discussed originally when time comes that, we want it, we need it, we want it yesterday. So a lot of people forget what originally was discussed. And I got that experience a lot, because, we discuss one thing when the client comes in, we agree to one thing. While we're in the middle of it, it turns into something else, because at the time of, things change, their emotional attachment changes. It's an emotional process, I think. So I don't think it's ever going to be as smooth as it gets. I don't think it's going to be that case.
So what your app was doing, is that kind of like how that, I've never looked at it, but is that how that Rocket Mortgage thing is supposed to be essentially?
No,
or is that something completely
no,
different?
I had the app way before anybody had it, even Rocket Mortgage or any of that stuff.
I've seen it more recently.
Yeah, it was it just literally just tells you, when you come into my office, we do the pre-approval process. You get pre-approved, and we put you on our dashboard, and you get on your phone notification. You created the account, and then step by step, all the information is there. You could even upload the conditions through there. You could upload anything we need. We could communicate through there, text messages through there, whichever way you want. And you get status updates, like your file is at this stage, and then you have like 60% to go. And then it tells you what the next stage is. And our processors are connected. Our realtors are connected to the app also. And then the other part is, when a lot of realtors think it's really cool that they're able to write pre-approvals directly from the app. So if they're writing an offer and they need to change something on the pre-approval, whatever pre-approved amount they are in a system on my end approved for, they can make the changes accordingly. And right away, they just get a PDF copy of the updated pre-approval letter.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds fantastic.
So yeah, it makes but again, people don't use it consistently because they want to talk to you. They want to call you. They want to text you. You know what I mean? Like it's probably the
demographic too as well, or does it, regardless of age or
I think it's
whatever,
emotional. It's because we're dealing with finances.
I guess it's more comforting to hear a human versus looking at a phone and the phone telling you this is where it is. Like, well, I don't care what that says. What is Anna telling me it's there or not?
Exactly. So I think it's just because we're dealing with money. And I'm probably one of the worst industries in it comes down to when it comes down to money and time, because I'm always against time. We have deadlines and we're dealing with money. I don't think it gets any worse than that. But at the end of the day, the outcome of it, I never do it for the financial purposes. Obviously, we all have to live and everything else. But for me, it's the outcome for the client. For me, it's that first-time home buyer was able to get financing. For me, it's that person that, 10 people told them you cannot do your loan, or they give them high rate, or they put them in a horrible program, and they, walk into my office. I tell them we could do this, this, that, and they're like, "That's it." I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe." So for me, that's priceless. Obviously, I get rewarded with, with the money at the end of it, but to me, that's priceless.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it is an emotional process. So that's why it makes sense to me, like all the reactions from the clients. And so given that, like, obviously I would imagine at some point, maybe it doesn't anymore, but doesn't that take a toll on you too? Or it's like you kind of, I guess, ride the emotions with them. They come in, excited, happy. Oh, I found the house, this, that. And then it's like, wait, it's been like 2 weeks. What's going on? So now they're getting upset, and then they're trying to get a hold of you, this, that. How do you manage all that? Maybe I'm sure earlier it was like, oh my gosh, like it's more, you're maybe react more so, but now is it like I know I've been here, I know how this works, or does it still kind of take a toll on you emotionally?
It takes a toll on me because I don't like when people, I just want anybody that is working with me, or or in any kind of friendship or whatever situation is that is dealing with me. I want them to have a pleasant experience, obviously. But at the end of the day, right now for me, it became to a point where it's if you don't respect my time, I'm not going to respect your time, period. Because I realized throughout the years, I'm at point in my life where, with the knowledge, you're coming to me for my knowledge, for my experience. And if you are, then you need to respect my time. That knowledge and experience is years and years and years of hard work and, sleepless nights and sacrifices and everything else that a lot of people don't see. So if you're not going to respect that, I don't have room for you, period. I always say you're more than welcome to walk away. Anybody, nobody's holding you. Nobody's, I completely understand. It's perfectly fine with me. No hard feelings. More than welcome to walk away if you're not going to respect my time.
Fair enough. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So you said you started at 17, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever go to school for this or anything?
Nothing.
Study anything? No, it's just been, you started at 17 out of circumstances, and you've stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, the reason I asked is because something I talk about a lot with other people. I mean, I went to school, but it's like, I think a lot of jobs end up losing opportunities with people because they expect an education to come with it, whether it be a bachelor's or whatever. And the thing that I think is most practical is if you work and do the work. I was talking to another guest the other day about this. I'm like, what I learned in school versus what I did after my first job after school, completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Completely unrelated. So it's like, let's say you went to school, right? And I don't know, you picked finance, accounting, whatever. What you're doing now, nothing. There's nothing that correlates. It's very bizarre to me. And something like I'll hear from like other people that have platforms or whatever, is like bring back apprenticeships. There's nothing like that.
I agree with you.
I don't know why these went out of style, or I don't know if it's still only like carpenters I don't know who does them anymore, if it even happens. But it's like, if I want to be an accountant, like one of the things at least should be go find an accountant, shadow them, don't get paid, shadow them for like 2-3 months, see if you like it or not, or if it'll work or not.
Yeah.
But then for whatever reason, something's happened where that's not the thing. Now it's the education. And my whole point of bringing it up is like you lose out again on people that are more than qualified, that can learn or whatever. But then you use that as like a filtering system. And that's it. Then you lose out.
When it comes down to education, unless you're, for me personally, unless you're a brain surgeon, unless
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
a scientist some kind, unless you're an astronaut, unless you're, you know, I mean, a lawyer, you just need it just for the license purposes, so to speak. But I know some
Mm-hmm.
people who know more law than the actual, you know, people who passed the bar. Unless you have those types of jobs.
Where it actually translates what you're learning to think, like
Exactly, exactly.
like you
I
said,
think
surgeon or
everything
whatever.
else is completely useless. I mean, I got out of law school. Okay, so in order for me to work, and I'm still thinking about just going back, just for the purposes of just getting, you know, not the degree itself, just getting
The knowledge.
knowledge and just having that license, so to speak,
Hmm.
just for that purposes, not for anything else. It's just more of a like a it's my own myself. It's for me. Let's just put it that way. And but I get paid, I get compensated more than attorneys do. I work the same amount of time as attorneys do. I don't have $200,000-$300,000 student loans on my credit. And you know, the amount of work, the amount of stuff that I've learned by working with people, dealing with people, and all of the above, is no school out there can ever teach. Period.
Mm-hmm.
No school out there. So for me, again, when people, you know, when people are applying for a job, when they list their degrees and in their intro letter, they talk about their degrees and everything else. I swear to God, I literally, the minute I start reading that, out the door. I don't care. Because again, I don't care what kind of books you read. It's what you do with your life, what you've done. You know what I mean? Just day to day, personally for me. So again, with real estate and mortgage, when you take the test to pass do this the schooling to pass the test has nothing to do with the real world, nothing whatsoever. So again, it shows that you could go to school, you could do a lot of things, but in reality, you cannot put that into action. You know, there's so many kids with business degrees and I don't know what degrees with $100,000 of school debt and
No knowledge gained.
no knowledge whatsoever. No knowledge whatsoever. They cannot even deal with the client. They cannot even, you know, solve any issues. And I think one of the key things that in life that I personally teach my kids, that if you're able to solve an issue, if you're able to solve a problem, you could do anything in your life.
Yeah, I think where it stems is in the classroom. By classroom, I mean like I'll specifically talk about like in like your undergrad or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you were saying like if you see something where they're mentioning I have this degree, SCN, and blah blah blah, but we're taught that's the thing. That's the like you're taught to pretty much like put this here, make sure you mention these keynotes, put these things that you did, put those in the top of the bullet, make those the top bullets so that they can see it right then and there, and then you go to applying to jobs. It's the same thing. You're seeing it there again, especially coming out of college. If you're like applying to like job specific for a new grad, 3.2 GPA or above, this or that. It's like, how many people do I know that have great flawless GPAs, but they're duds?
Exactly. Oh, a lot of them.
There's so many of them. Like a neighboring company too, not too far away. I saw a posting from them for a job that I do. They like an insane GPA, like investment banking, preferred this, that. And I'm looking at the job's responsibilities. I'm like, but you guys aren't even an investment bank. Why do you want an investment banker? I'm looking at the response because there's stuff where I can make sense where it's like, you might have to doing certain things where the background I can see what helps. But I'm reading the thing, I'm like, like, why do you, like, they just put the cream of the top and it's like, you might love, let's say it's someone you find that, but they're still nothing. Like, just, because it's very easy to slime your way up.
Of course.
I've gone through enough processes that you do it where like you learn their language, you learn how they want what they want you to hear to talk and this that, and it's very again it's so slimy. It
is slimy, and it's for me personally. It's disgusting. I personally, because on a human level also, you know, that corporate world with all that, like it's I don't know. I could never be in that. I could never be in that environment, and the human aspect of everything is extremely, extremely important for me.
Well, that's the benefit when you have your own business. Like, so you have your own business. My friend outside has his own business, and like when I'll tell him like about the interview process or whatever, And he's like, holy crap, man. He's like, if I meet a person that I'm trying to get the job for, I will talk to them. If I like them, I will hire them.
Exactly.
Other places, again, the corporate environment, he might first talk with the HR person. Okay, he might gonna talk with the hiring manager. Okay, he might go talk with the hiring manager's boss. He might gonna start. It's like, it's been 2 months. I've talked to 7 people. And I still don't know if I got the job. It's like, why are you putting me through this process?
Yeah,
and then you go through this whole thing, and then you bring someone, and it doesn't end up working. It's like, so obviously your process isn't really working.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, there's this like corporate mentality. And mind you, my background is entirely in corporate.
Yeah.
I've worked at Goodyear in corporate. I've worked at this company here in downtown that's big in like when it comes, they like own LA Live, they own sports team stuff. I've only worked in big companies except one, which was still big comparatively speaking, but like they're not a known name. So I see it. And it's unfortunate because like I'll sit there and I'm rolling my eyes like when it comes to them trying to hire someone. It's like, but then like it's like they have to go through that process too. But it's like, who sets this? Why is it this way? Whereas like for you, I'm sure you're like, okay, this is what I'm hiring for. What do? This is what I need, blah, blah, blah. You ask them the questions, cool, you're hired.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. 100%. I agree with you. There are times where, you know, I would meet some, you know, just random people at a nail salon, and just the way they talk, their personality and how they're able to, you know, hold on to a conversation and how they're able to process things. I would just offer them a job, which I had. You know, there was this one girl that I met, I offered her a job, and she's like, I'm graduating law school soon. I'm like, that makes sense. Like I know why I'm doing this. And 2 out of a few people that work for me, they actually left and they went on to law school. One of them is a DA already. So I'm like, I should start advertising. You know, if you work at AKL, we turn you into a lawyer. You know, so
it's as good of a return as you're gonna get.
Exactly. But again, I'm at the, you know, everybody knocks on my door. So at the end of the day, because everybody needs mortgage and they need knowledge, so you know, the two come in hand.
So there was a period of time I said I wanted to talk to you about. So you said 16 years you've been doing it on your own. So you started around 04.
A little bit earlier.
Okay,
than that,
so 03 or 04, let's say, sure. So 4 or 5 years into what you're doing, some crazy stuff starts happening in America with in your space. So 07, 08, everything goes to crap. What's going on with you at that point? Are you guys impacted? What changed for your business after? What the hell went on?
So I guess I can say that I was saved by the bell, because in 2006 I got married, and you know, being a newlywed, I realized that I can't just be working. Literally, I was working from 6 a.m. until like 11 p.m. at night. So I can't have that work hour schedule, obviously. So I tried to cut it down a little, and then I realized that it's just not happening. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to take some time off in order for me just to figure out this whole, you know, the married life and everything else. And I sold my company at that time to one of my processors. That was in 2000, towards end of 2006. And end of 2006, beginning of 2007, sorry, like around there. And then right before the crash starting to happen, it was a couple of files that I submitted. And right before I sold it, pretty much, there was a couple of files that I submitted, and I got, you know, denial letters and so on back, and they would start picking on things that they weren't picking before. So I was like, something is up, something is happening, and they all kept it so like quiet and hush hush, you know, like it wasn't just now with the COVID and everything else. So they all kept it very quiet, and it just happened like out of nowhere, and you know, people were not expecting it. And I said, okay, something is up in the industry, something is happening. And I said, it couldn't be any better time. So I just got out of the industry. And then I had my daughter in 08. And within 6 months to something, close to a year, I came back to the industry. And then I got back as a loan processor, strictly for the purposes of me that I've been out for a few years. I had to figure out what's going on. And I'm type of a person that I need to know everyone's job in my office. So I had to get into it. So I applied for this company in Glendale, and he called me. He's all like, you're overly qualified, but I have to see the person who's behind this resume. So I went and I said, look, this is a situation. I'm going back to the mortgage world. let me process. Like, I want to be a processor, so that way I know what's going on. And I got the job, and 6 months into it, I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like 9 to 5, I can't work for anybody. It's not going to happen. I mean, I could work 15 hours a day nonstop, but I cannot be working for somebody else from 9 to 5. So, and then I've been back ever since.
So did the sale end up going through your company or no?
No, it did go
It did
through.
go
Yeah,
through.
it did
So
go
you
through.
sold it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah, but I didn't
fun.
sell my name though. I just sold the whatever the clientele I had at that time. Yeah.
What was that process like? You know, obviously outside the part where they started, you kind of started getting
It
denial
was
letters.
it was very simple. It wasn't
okay.
even a big deal because you know the same office stayed, everything stayed. The lease was just transferred over because I didn't sell my name, so I didn't have to worry about it. So just kept my name and just see you later. This is it.
So when you kind of restarted again, was there a transition period, or were you like kind of right back into it? Because you already did like the processing, right? So
Well, I
restarted
restarted back into it as a processor. I got back into it as a processor for me to figure out all the changes and everything else that happened in the past 2-3 years that I was out. And that was the period where a lot of short sales were happening and so on. So I within maximum 6 months, because it was just like on and off I was trying to do. And then the minute my clients found out that I was back in the mortgage world, and one of my very first clients, who still is my client, and it's just their whole family has been, I've been doing loans for them for their whole family. They just immediately came back to sit down. We want you to do our refi. You know, nobody touched our loans since you did it, and we want you to do our refinance. And that's how I said, you know what? Okay, now it's time for me to go back to originating. So
that's good.
Yeah.
So something we talked about is kind of like the education piece of people kind of knowing about these things. What's like the best way for people to educate themselves about this? Because it's obviously not the sexiest topic. I don't know who the hell wants to sit and learn about how do these things work. Yeah, but there's obviously a time where hopefully for most people where it comes where they're going to buy some type of property for themselves, whether it be a house, apartment, whatever. Hopefully everyone has the opportunity to own their own home, because it's critical. Well, that's not, you can live without it, but it's good to have your own home.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for a lot of people, when do they start learning about what is it? Is when they're actually going to go through it.
Going to go through
right?
it, exactly. Yeah.
What do you think is a way, I don't know if you ever thought about this, where that can be prevented? Is there something in high school, a middle school class, something? When is the time for that to start, that education to start coming in place somehow?
We're not going to get it in schools, obviously.
Unfortunately.
I mean, again, real world has nothing to do with, the kids are going to school for, and I have 3 of them. I know what's going on in there. So I just think that it's extremely important to understand it's not just the mortgage portion of it. It has to do with your taxes, your investments, and how you file them and what you do. And, when you start actually showing taxes, when you start working, when you get income, it's extremely important to start educating yourself on everything. The whole understanding, the whole concept that people, the kids grow up listening to from, their parents or their family friends. Oh, let's make sure you don't file taxes. I don't need to pay taxes. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. Rule of thumb, you have good credit, you pay taxes, you could have anything if you want in this country, period. Okay, I don't care who you are. If you want to buy a jet, go pay your taxes, have an amazing credit. Guess what? They're going to give you financing for a jet. Okay, so those are the rule of thumb to follow. Because anywhere you go, if you wanted to make a good investment, anything you touch, there are two requirements, which would be your credit and your income. So what's the point of running away from it? Pay extra $2,000 for your taxes, but you're stable. You're able to get the best rate if you want to. You're able to get best out of everything. And I think also the issue that a lot of people have, the not understanding how taxes work, which is extremely, extremely important to do so. It's not understanding portion of it, because in their mind they think, oh, if they do something, they need to pay, again, like I said, $30,000-$40,000. And the reason I'm bringing this dollar amount, because I hear that a lot in my office, where they come in, they're like, oh, we don't want to pay $30,000-$40,000. I'm like, why would you assume it's $30,000-$40,000?
Yeah, where are they getting this from, though?
Because it's just conversation, especially in our culture, in our community. Yeah. So I think it's extremely important. The minute you start making any income, that you're going to be filing to IRS to show and so on. And I think the education needs to be there. And please, I beg, it's extremely important. Make sure your accountant is an actual CPA, is licensed, because there's a lot of bookkeepers out there who do taxes who are not licensed to do so. Not that they're not licensed to file your taxes. They can, still do it. But when it comes down to financing, when it comes down to legal stuff, other than just taxes, they cannot provide you with the proper documentation that the CPA can, like profit and loss statements, CPA letters, verifying your income. They're not allowed to do so. So it just becomes useless for you.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I was interested to hear your take, because there's several steps of that whole thing that needs to be addressed for people to even know. Because again, because I'm sure you deal with it a lot, where they're pretty much like, how do I pay the least amount of taxes? The CPA will like, this is what you do, cool. It's like, okay, I also want to buy a house. You go to buy the house. I want to buy this. Like, you make no money.
Yeah.
You're showing like $20,000 a year. It's like, so what? It's like, well, how do you want to buy a house? It's $1 million house. You're showing $20,000 a year. How's it gonna make it work?
I think that here's the key. It's not about when people tell me like we don't want to pay taxes. I'm like, listen, it's not about paying taxes or not. You have to understand, if this is what you want, you need to be able to show this.
Mm-hmm.
And I always explain to them also the chances of you getting audited. You have a credit that you have 5 cars under your name. Each of them is $1,000. That alone is $5,000 a month expense. Okay, I'm not talking about living expenses. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about rent. I'm not talking about any other than that. And you're showing $16,000 annual income, your net income. I'm like, how are you supposed to? It doesn't add up. I'm like, it needs to make sense. I'm like, I get it. Nobody wants to pay a lot of taxes. I understand. But you have to be logical. You have to understand. And I always say this, once you prep yourself for worst case scenario in this country, any worst case scenario, that could be earthquake. You need to have earthquake insurance. That could be life insurance. That could be, your taxes, with everything else. If you prep yourself for worst case scenario, you're always going to be good.
But that goes back to towards the beginning. I think we were talking. It's the short-sighted versus long-sighted.
Yeah.
Short-term, long-term. When you were talking about when it comes to determining which mortgage works for you, it's the same. The logic is still the same. Don't just think right now what's going to work. Exactly. It's like over the period of time. Most people aren't going to buy the house and it's gone in 3 years, paid off in 3 years. It's not the situation for most of them. So it's the same thing here. And especially here, I'm sure for, again, a lot of your clients, with it being in Glendale, you're probably like always running. There's like, sick up with like 10,000 net trying to buy again this house, and then they're like, why isn't it working?
Oh yeah, because, and then they come and they ask you, the famous thing, the like it starts off with that, and then it's not happening. Not happening. It's again, I think goes back to educating, and I try to do a lot of, I go live. I do a lot of lives. Mm-hmm. I try to do videos on this, like trying to educate people and so on. Another huge issue that we had with SBA loans. That was like a disaster of its own. I literally did it live, and I went through the SBA contract step by step. I went one by one with them. And I said, this is it. This is what it's for. This is the reason why you're applying for it. You guys have to understand how it works and what you can do and what you cannot do. So, again, going back to it, people need to be educated on it.
You mentioned the lives a couple of times, so that's something I wanted to talk to you about. Mm-hmm. So earlier you were mentioning you kind of started doing social media more to kind of not so much to promote the company, to advertise the company, but more like, I guess, the education piece. Like you said, you're doing these lives to talk about it. Do you find, because for me, again, this is interesting to me, but I'm kind of in this, I'm not in mortgage, but like finance related stuff interests me. Most people probably doesn't. Again, like we were saying, people aren't generally like, let me go read up on what's going on in the financial services industry. But again, this is what you use your social media for. Mm-hmm. Is there any troubles you have do you ever feel like the message is it's hard to get the message across? Because again, social media, I don't know who associates social media with learning about mortgages or learning about this. But the caveat is, like, I've also seen very effective realtors, for example, right? They make social media. They do a really effective job of doing that. So how has that been for you? Like, from when you started, like, was it kind of difficult to where you are now? And like, what you think going forward, do you think you've already found like the sweet spot of how to effectively use it? How's that process been?
As far as have I started, I have not even started. It's like I haven't even begun doing whatever.
Barely scratched the surface.
Yes, because when I originally started the social media, I said, you guys have to understand one thing, that I'm not doing this to get clientele. So that means I'm not going to be, trying to sell something to somebody. So it was just the idea of me trying to show as to who I am. Because I'm in a business, I'm not selling, a dress. I'm not selling some kind of an item. I'm not selling an item like a pen for me to take a picture of a pen and say, hey, this is $19.99. I'm selling this. I can't do that. And, with my client portfolios and stuff, it's very private. I cannot post my client's information out, say, I just closed the transaction for this person with this amount. You know what I mean? So, it had to be myself and my knowledge and what I know, and adding my personal life into it, because this is personal to me. I spend majority of my day in the office and dealing with my clients, and especially with my clients that have been here with me for over a decade. And we have everybody turned into like a family to me. So it is personal for me. Okay, when I have people telling me, "Oh, it's not personal; it's just business." I'm like, "No, for me, it is personal." So, I wanted to share a piece of me, as far as like who I am, what I am. So, and nothing would get posted if it wasn't authentic, and if I didn't feel it was the right thing to do. And with our marketing team, I bump heads a lot. And because of that matter, and for them, it's about, the likes and the views and all this stuff. But for me, it's not. And I've said this many times before. And, I'm not for sale. I'm not going to sell myself. If there's something I don't feel comfortable, and if it doesn't apply to me, it's not going to get posted, period. So I'm very specific when it comes down to that. And throughout this past few years, I've been getting a lot of positive feedback as far as my message is being heard properly, and it does come across. And I've been getting back. I read a lot, and I hear a lot of people saying, and when you explain, we get it. When you do this, we understand. So that means, whatever I'm trying to put out there, it makes sense to them, which is a great thing. I think it's a blessing to have. As a person, especially somebody that is in an industry where I deal with clients. So my key that I want to build on that. So for me, I always say this: when you walk into my office, I want you to walk out knowing 10 times more than with whatever you just walked in. Because if you know more, makes my life easier. You know what I mean? If you know more, you do better. And it makes my job easier because you understand how the process works. So I hope that answered your question.
It does.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So another thing that I was thinking, so again, given the amount of time you've been doing this, the hours you work, and you have kids, how do you not get burned out? Yeah. Where's the energy come from? Because I was talking to someone else about this too the other day. They were doing a PhD and a master's at the same time. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you want to go do something after school or after work? Like, how do you manage all that? You 3 kids, right?
3 kids.
Okay,
yeah.
So.
My oldest is 12, 7, and my youngest one is 3.5 at this point. So I'm blessed to have amazing kids. That's number one. On top of that, when you love what you do, and you do it for the love of it, not for the money. Okay. That's when, you can work tirelessly. You can work, it becomes effortless for you obviously I'm a human being. There are times when I just get sick of everything and everybody, and I'm like, I just want to disappear for a few days and just like, no, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to, I don't want to hear from anybody. Just leave me alone. That's only given because again, we're only humans. We get overwhelmed. But when I'm in that, zone, I can literally work until 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And my mom calls me, is like, on Urmanatsid, that's when I'm like, oh, hold on a second. It's like, it's 2 o'clock. It's 1 a.m. It's 2 a.m. Okay, I gotta go. So especially in our industry, when I always tell this to people, anybody that worked for me, I always said this: if you're gonna be there for the money, you're not gonna survive. Because when things become hard or harder, if you're doing that just for the money purposes, you're not gonna stay. It's not gonna happen. You have to love what you do. You have to love the outcome. For me, every transaction is like a puzzle. Everything is new to me. And with my personality as well, that's why I said I love challenges, and it was very challenging for me. With real estate, I mean, it was boring for me. I did open house twice in my life, and second time I wanted to kill myself. I was like, oh my God, I'll kill myself if I sit around. It was just waste of time for me personally. So, but with mortgages, it's like it's a nonstop process, and how quickly you're going to close them, what you're going to do, and so on. So, you have to love what you do, and not just do it for the money. And as far as how I do it in general, I don't think about it. I just do it. Because if I start thinking about it, I'll have an anxiety attack. Yeah, I just do it.
Got it. You have a foundation.
Yes.
Let's talk about it. What is it? What do you do?
Anacare Foundation. The whole idea of it became what it is today is years ago. At this point, my daughter is 12. So about 12 years ago, a group of us were helping out some orphan kids in Armenia. And I always had a question. I was always bothered by it. I would always ask that, what happens to these kids after they get to a certain age? Like, what happens to them? Because at 16, 17, they have to leave the orphanages and so on. And nobody could really answer that question. It was kind of like very gray area. And started digging into it more and more and more. And a lot of bad things were happening. Let's just put it that way. And it just kind of bothered me because, again, having kids, and having kids, you see it like it lasts 10 minutes and then it's like, okay, what's next? So I said, we're not using our time and for money in a right way. So we started just taking a couple of kids here and there, like adult, and we'll provide them with housing. We take care of them fully with food, their daily expenses, everything. We take care of everything. And, their job is to go to school, graduate, and do some volunteer work and so on. And after the revolution, with previous government, we tried to work, but then they didn't give us it wasn't beneficial for them, so to speak. So after the revolution, the social services of Armenia said, we're 100% with you. It's an amazing program. I'll be more than happy to help. So we became an official foundation in Armenia as a branch as well. So we started working directly with the government social services to help out. And because of our foundation, one of the reasons that they were able to close down a lot of orphanages last year in Armenia, actually, no, beginning of this year, end of December last year, beginning of January of 2020. And because we took the responsibility of taking care of the older kids, so to speak. So we house them, we take care of them, we give them the support that they need. That could be medical, financial, the education wise and everything else. And then, whatever their goals are based on that, once they hit, reach that certain goal, and then we let them go, and then the next person comes in. But then the requirements are there that you need to, you have to be, going to school. You have to volunteer. You have to do work. And I don't believe in just handing money over to people, because I don't think it brings out the right mentality. And it took me a while to get them do the volunteer work, because they keep telling me it's against human rights. So I said, what do you mean it's against human
Yeah.
rights? Like volunteer work. I'm like, I can't even graduate high school without 2 years of volunteer. Like, what are you talking about? And, they were open to it. They turned it around. And with the war happening, we just have to we still do whatever we do on the side. We just had to shift a little. I got a group of us together, a few of my friends, and we did an amazing job. We did a fundraiser. Within 3 days, we raised over $100,000 and
Fantastic.
over 300 something $1,000 worth of medical supply, first aid that I contacted Armenia for. And we shipped those items over there. I flew myself out there, and I was there since October 15. I was there, and I made sure. We have a lot of issues now with items being shipped and not getting where they need to go. But I personally made sure that we got all our items out and got it where they needed to go. So that was a little bit of effort, but we did it.
Was that part of your most recent trip?
Yes. So I made sure that happens. And we took care of, we're currently also taking care of over 1,800 families from Artsakh while I was there also. And there's a lot that we've done, and we're continuing to do so, because now we have to shift it to a different direction as far as, the post-war and everything else that we need to take care of. And my number one goal is, and I don't, again, I don't believe in putting money on table. I don't believe in just giving them money and saying everything is fine, I could go sleep now. I don't believe in that, because, you have to teach them. You have to give them the chance in order for them to build their own lives. It's like, because at Muratskanet, you know what I mean? Like Muratskanet Vichaka, like I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I don't want them to be in that position, because they're capable of so much. It's just that we just need to give them the chance to do so, the platform to do so. And, we want to build a workplace, a workforce for them to come into work, to able to, even though we're going to support them a little bit financially, but yet also we want them to learn how to take care of themselves. And also another huge issue especially in Armenia, in our culture, is, a lot of our soldiers, the head of household went, and we lost their lives during the war, and then you have a wife who has 5 kids at home with no job skill, with nothing, and how's that gonna work? So the mentality of it needs to change as well, because you're living in a war country. Anything can happen anytime, and not just because in a war country. I think in everywhere you live, doesn't matter. So you have to be able to understand that, God forbid something happens to any one of us, we're able to take care of our family. Like we have 5 kids. We have to understand that. So again, the mentality, I think, needs to be shifted, and the understanding that they are responsible for their own lives. It's not the government. Nobody cares who's on top sitting there. You're responsible for your own life. So I think that's on a longer run, and I think it needs to be done, because I think for past 20 plus years, it's just that they made our culture feel like they're not able, they're not capable, in order for them to control them. And I can't blame them, because unfortunately that's what they grew up in, that's what they saw. And, but I think we need to change slowly. Each and every one of us needs to change. And all the, the kids from the well, I don't want to call them from the orphanages, but I call them my girls. And every time we talk, and, they say like, this is not possible. And that, I'm like, no, that's not true. That is possible. It's just, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to approach it differently. You have to approach it this way, approach it that way. So I think it's just that now, especially now, anybody that is planning on doing something for Armenia, anybody planning on investing in Armenia. I said this after the revolution, because, by the way, I was there for the revolution. I flew out on the 25th of April. I was there. So I witnessed the whole thing. I did closures of the streets. I did everything. So that was a life-changing experience for me, which I'm very grateful for. My family and friends taking care of my kids and everything else. So while I was there. So, And I said that anybody who wants to invest in Armenia shouldn't do it for the money, especially now, because obviously it's small. You're not going to be able to get the return that you need to, but you have to do it for the love of Armenia. You have to do it because you want to educate people about, whatever changes that you want to bring there. And it could be challenging, but it's very well worth it, I think.
Yeah, and
So,
especially what you're doing, what I appreciate most about that is besides the act that you're doing is the whole thing of I'm not like here's $5,000 like do what you want with this like no
yeah,
you're gonna there's like not criteria but there's things that need to be done
yeah.
and not like just to like work for it but it's like to again for the mentality's sake where you're not like oh no it's like here do this stuff here's what we're raising now with that the reason you did that is so you can see I can do this I can do that you see what comes through with the volunteering the working so that now when you're older you might go make something of it.
Make something out of it. Exactly. And the I approach that same mentality with my kids as well, because I personally lived through that. Because again, even though I started physically working, like, getting paid when I was, 17, 18. But before that, the weekends, my friends would go to the movies. I would be at my mom's, she had a manufacturing company, sewing manufacturing company, that I would be at my mom's, cleaning out the sewing machines and doing payroll for her at 14, 15 years old. So I think it's extremely important that you understand that in order for you to make something out of it in your life, you first of all you need to work. Nothing is free. Nothing is given to you free. And ոչ մեկ էլ պարտավոր չի քեզ պահելու. Let's just put it that way. And and we need to shift that in Armenia extremely. I mean, and որ օդի ջրի պես պետք է այն կարծիքով Հայաստանում, թե չէ ափսոս աջայլությունը, but at the same time Հայաստանում աջայլություն կա, որ it's so weird. There's one thing I love about Armenia is it's so tiny, but it has so many layers of different people. It's insane. It's like an onion to me, there's like almond layer, but tarbera. And then you have the tech world in Armenia, which is insane. I was there this last time I was there too. I mean, it's insane. It's mind-boggling to me. You have this like 17-year-old kids that make $8,000-9,000 a month. Okay. But then you have this other crowd who's like 20 some plus 30-year-olds who say, oh, is երկրում բան չկա անելու. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so tiny, it's so small. And I'm like, wow, it's like, how do you guys mesh with all of you guys, with each other? It's I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully that will change. But again, it's all
a mind game. It's all mind game. Yeah.
And any final notes that you'd like to let people on? You want to reiterate anything that we didn't discuss that you want to sign off on for people to hear, or you think you covered it all?
I'll just say one thing, that at the end of the day, we all want to be loved, and we all want to be, understood, and especially now, when this whole war was happening. There was a point where in the beginning when we were all so united, we got together and everything else. And then as it was happening, this whole thing started with, you know what I mean? Like money, this person, that. It created this commotion again. You know what I mean? It turned it into popularity contest. It turned it into a financing thing. I mean, money-wise thing. It just turned ugly. Let's just put it that way. I just want people to remember that number one thing is at the end of the day. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much you're worth. If you're not a kind person, if you're not a loving person, makur marches, you're worth nothing to me. I will never ever sell my soul. I will never ever work with somebody just because they have money or just because they have a title. So it's extremely important to understand that and come back to being a human being. Just be kind.
I think great note to end on. Anna, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where can people learn more about the program, your foundation? How can people help? All of your socials.
I'm on Instagram, Anna Care Loans and Anna Care Foundation. Instagram, Facebook. Any questions, anything you guys have, DM, and be more than happy to answer. So
Okay, we'll
thank
include
you.
all that stuff in the description
Thank
box.
you.
Thanks so much
Appreciate
again
it.
for coming.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.